Alright, this was the movie I was most looking forward to this weekend, this Memorial Day weekend, and that is Bert Kreischer's The Machine. I convinced so many people to take the day off from work and whatever other plans they had to join me in going to see The Machine. And honestly, it delivered. The Machine is based off of one of Bert Kreischer's most popular comedy segments where he talked about his time in Russia. And this is like a pseudo sequel to that Russia mob story that he has. And for starters, I love that Russian mob story. It is hilarious, and I think they do a really good job in this film of honoring that one. And honestly, I just want to talk about everything in this movie, so let's get started. The story, as I mentioned before, the story is pretty much set in today time. It's set in the current day, and it's following up over the sequences of The Machine and everything that happened in that story, the past coming back to haunt him. And it is so much fun. All they're doing is chasing this MacGuffin, and they have to return the MacGuffin, and then in doing so, he visits places that he hadn't been to since college. He encounters people that he hasn't seen since those college days. It is so good. It is a passable story. I just think that what they did with it was very interesting. He's got his wife and kids. He's having marital problems, but they're not super annoying like in other films. He's got daddy issues, so this might as well be a sci-fi movie because he's got daddy issues, and it's just great. Story, hand grenade score, easy. Now, the cinematics, my goodness, the cinematics were great. The action was great. The comedy was there, although I do feel it was a little weak, but that's because the Machine story is just so funny that I was expecting it to be really funny as well. But the action, the cool, badass action of this film more than makes up for the fact that I found the comedy a little underwhelming. And we're getting ready to start talking about, in the next section, I'll start talking about everything that is great, but one little thing I like about this movie is how when the Russian characters are speaking in Russian, the text shows up on the side of the screen, and it's always eligible. And one of my favorite little things that they did was always, sometimes they started off in Russian, and then they make the letters flip, and they flip from the Russian characters into the normal, Western characters. And so they, translate from Russian to English. And one thing that they always keep is the R inverted because of how the Russians do it. It's so cool to see. And I love when movies put, subtitles to foreign languages that aren't English in their films, because that's a great way to keep audience engagement. Because one nitpick I have of these movies of many movies is when they have a bunch of different languages in there, but they don't translate them all for the grander audience. Not everyone's going to know how to speak Spanish, not everyone's going to know how to speak Portuguese, not everyone's going to know how to speak French, not everyone's going to know how to speak Russian. So it's always good to see them translate those languages, especially if they don't have a translator character. I never really mind when the movies don't translate the Portuguese because I speak it, so I understand it already, but it's annoying for everyone else who doesn't speak it to be left out. Fast Five, for example, is one movie that comes to mind real quickly that I was doing the translating for my friends. And honestly, the cinematic, just those visual effects, work so good. And oh my god, how they did flashbacks in this movie, and they did flashbacks perfectly, in my opinion. And the transitions and the flashbacks, honestly, cinematics, props, hand grenade score, and I also think that's also due to the directing style and flavor. Beautiful, magnificent, wonderful. Hand grenade score for the director. The directing in this movie was just so on point, so solid, so much better than I was expecting. I was not expecting it to be this top tier. this and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent may have easily been the biggest surprises for me in the last who knows how long. Like, I legitimately did not expect these two films to be so well directed. It's quite shocking, honestly. But this one, in my opinion, just had better cinematics and cinematography in some of its shot composition. It is phenomenal to look at, phenomenal to watch. Hand grenade score for the directing as well, obviously. The acting, solid. Everything about it. Just all of our leads, Bert Kreischer, Mark Hamill, beautiful. Wonderful. I really like how this is, you know what, I'll talk about this in my expectations. But great acting, hand grenade. Now let's get back to the point that I was talking about before I wanted to end the directing segment. But one thing I really like about this movie is the fact that this is the second year in a row where we have a notable Hollywood figure who's famous for random shit, like Nicolas Cage, for all of his crazy movie performances, and Bert Kreischer both playing in a movie where they go to a foreign country to relive sort of a dream, and they both end up being in crazy hostage scenarios where they're trying to save their daughter. It's crazy weird how The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent and The Machine are so similar, but they're both solid for it. But unfortunately, due to the fact that there's such an easy comparison between The Machine and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent just being one of my favorite movies of all time, The Machine is hurt by that. And honestly, I loved The Machine. And if you haven't checked out the Bert Kreischer Mafia Story clip on YouTube, do yourself a favor and go check that out now. But honestly, this movie came well above my expectations in most of it, and everyone who I saw it with loved it. Everyone loved The Machine. It was so solid. Solid experience. Certified hand grenade movie, because everything about this was explosive, and there were some actual explosions too. It is so funny, and they also make like a reference to an obscure thing in this movie, just like they did in The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Honestly, I can geek out about this movie for as long as I want, but I need to cut it here, mostly because I don't want this to be 20 minutes long, with 12 minutes being a rant. But yeah, like if you enjoyed the video, comment down below if you've heard of this movie, if you've seen The Machine or the Machine comedy special. I want to know what everyone's opinions on The Machine is at this point. But yeah, other than that, I'll leave you guys to it.